You're watching Exit 1055 with your host, Richard Rose.
Morning, I'm Richard Rose, and welcome to Exit 1055 Long Island, your show about all things Long Island. In a bit, we'll get into the debate about allowing Syrian refugees into the U.S. because of fears that a terrorist could possibly hide in their ranks. But we begin with this morning with the sobering fact that it's estimated that 1/10 of the homeless population in the United States is actually made up of U.S. military veterans. Now, that's been the reality for Kwame Williams. After 7 years in the Army, the college-educated veteran couldn't find a job upon his return and even ended up in a shelter for veterans.
Things went downhill very quickly for me. I got very depressed and I found myself in a psych ward.
That is a national disgrace.
That's Congressman Steve Israel. He now says he has a potential game-changing solution for the estimated 50,000 homeless veterans, turning thousands of abandoned or foreclosed zombie homes into homes for veterans. There's already a $25 million grant for this, but Congressman Israel has now introduced legislation to expand the program nationwide. And joining us now to speak about this idea and what needs to be done to help returning vets readjust to civilian life is a Long Island veteran who has dealt with his own housing issues. He is Tim Terrain, formerly a staff sergeant in the U.S. Army who served tours of duty in the Middle East, Afghanistan, and Iraq. And welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you.
First of all, your reaction to the incredible number of veterans who are homeless, and do you think Congressman Israel's proposal could work?
It can work. It's just who's going to pay for it after they're inside the home? And are you going to house veterans that already have jobs? Those are my questions.
These are the twin issues that you dealt with. First of all, you returned and you thought you were going to get help with a rental apartment, but then you ran into some problems with the rules about that. Explain that part of it.
Right. It's like you said, a catch-22. You get an apartment. They try to help you find a place to live. You say, okay, yes, I need help. Then you also got to get a job to pay for that apartment. You know that. However, what happens now, you make $31,200. You're making too much money.
You made slightly more than the maximum.
Than the max you're allowed to have.
So then they pulled back what they were offering you in terms of a subsidy. And what, you couldn't afford the apartment you were looking at that point?
No, we couldn't get it. I wasn't eligible for their program no longer once I received employment.
How much more than the max were you making?
About $200.
$200. So for $200 you couldn't get the help.
Yes.
And of course this is a very expensive place to find housing for. And then you faced a very unfortunate tragedy in which your ex-wife took her own life and you had to take in your son. And that caused problems with your attempts to go to school. Explain that.
Right. We try to use our GI Bill as best as possible. However, when you withdraw, we incur the same penalties as anybody else that would withdraw if we withdraw, you know, kind of after the withdrawal date.
So you mean you started up at the school, then this happened, this ex-wife of yours taking your life, you had to take in your son, and then what, you had to quit school?
I had to stop going to school, obviously with a big change. Had to still pay school back because I couldn't finish because you now have to be a full-time parent, a lot of big adjustments.
So you weren't going to school anymore, but you had to pay them back for what, the grants or loans or subsidies that they gave you?
Yes, you had to pay back the school, the fees,
So how much was that?
It was a little over $10,000.
Have you paid that back?
Yes.
What's your situation now? Have you been able to find a place? Are you okay financially with this?
Now I'm good. Basically what you've learned in the Army, you kind of apply what you've learned, perseverance, standing up and say, okay, you got knocked down, let's keep moving. All right, you can't cry over it. We're not going to cry over spilled milk. It's not what we do. You figure out ways to adjust. I've received employment, you know, pay back the money that I had to pay back, and just had to live within a strong budget.
So you've done that. You've tried to provide for your family. I think most people will say you've tried to do all the right things. And here are these programs that are meant for you, but somehow you wind up not helping you. What is the biggest problem with helping veterans who are returning to the U.S.?
The programs are geared towards veterans that are just down in the dumps. Like, you have to be on the street, homeless, dirty, sick, to get the help. And a lot of veterans, we're not homeless, dirty, sick. We're very mature individuals. We fought 2 wars. We know how to stand up straight. We know how to speak. We know how to work. We work hard. So we don't look for handouts. So it's kind of hard for us to be eligible for a lot of these programs because we're not looking for the handout. We're just looking for a fair shot.
Yeah, this has got to be difficult. I imagine there's even perhaps a stigma developing where people think they're being stereotyped as maybe having psychological problems or homeless.
What I found as being a veteran, not only just being a veteran, I'm also a black, I'm a minority. So it was already hard enough to get a job as a black man. So now I'm a black veteran with PTSD. Almost nobody wants to hire you.
What are they? I guess they're afraid maybe you lacked out or something.
Yes, of course.
But supposedly there are all these programs that help you get a job. We always hear about employers that say we hire veterans.
Yeah, there's a lot of those programs out. Veterans go to job fairs all the time, and it's the same employers, and it's the same thing over and over again. The NCO, the non-commissioned officers that join the Army and go up through the ranks from E1 all the way up to E9, are getting overshadowed by the guys that have the bachelor's degrees or come in with bachelor's degrees and things like that. So of course they're going to always get the jobs over NCOs and guys that are doing And
of course that's a syndrome that everybody in life has to deal with.
Yes.
But these employers get tax subsidies to hire veterans. Do they stick with the veterans once?
I've found that a lot of those programs, they're going to hire the veterans, and then after the time frame where they could get that tax subsidy, then the veteran all of a sudden is let go. So they get the tax write-off, but the veteran loses the job after 9 to 12 months.
Well, we're so disheartened to hear that, and of course there's so many issues here to look into. I understand now, though, that the town of North Hempstead, I'm told they're motivated in great part by your plight, have decided to dedicate a staff person to the needs of veterans. Are you expected to meet with them soon and get some help? And what kind of help are they going to offer you?
Well, we're going to meet with them again. Actually, I'm going to help and consult with them. With Gail directly.
To help them figure out how to help
exactly what the veterans actually need, as opposed to assuming that this is what they want. Because there's a lot of things that we need. I saw a story, it was back in the 40s, about toys. And the guy said it was innovative at the time, and it said, well, the company said, let's ask the kids what they want. And that's all you got to do is ask the veteran what they want instead of assuming what we need.
Well, Staff Sergeant Tim Terrain, thanks for coming in and talking about what's become a difficult problem for our nation and trying to figure out how to reincorporate veterans who serve this country. Thank you for your service, and hopefully you'll get all the help that you deserve.
Thank you.
And when we return, the new system keeping constant surveillance on major roads in our area, could it help prevent a terror attack here? And welcome back. A Long Island village is breaking some new ground, beefing up protection with what it calls a ring of steel. Freeport Village, with some of the island's busiest roads, is completely surrounding its perimeter with a network of license plate readers to keep criminals out. TV 1055's Carolyn Gussoff has a look at this suburban ring of steel that scans every car coming and going.
In the heart of Nassau County, at some of its busiest crossroads, Sunrise Highway, Merrick Road. Now, every single car passing through this central corridor is scanned for criminal activity.
Suspended or revoked registration.
Freeport unveiling 27 mounted license plate readers, now encircling the perimeter of the 4-square-mile village at nearly every entrance, automatically cross-referencing with state, federal, and DMV databases. Alerts for warrants, stolen cars, suspected getaway cars. They all sound at a new command center 24/7. Patrol cars at the ready to nab offenders.
Suspended or revoked registration.
We've gotten stolen plates, stolen vehicles, expired, no insurance.
Freeport Mayor Robert Kennedy says he was inspired by Lower Manhattan's so-called Ring of Steel. He says Operation Safe Streets, costing $600,000, is a cost-effective turning point for suburban policing.
If you were to put a police officer at every intersection to watch for criminals who are entering or departing, it would be very expensive.
Police now have eyes on up to 2,000 cars per minute, averaging 155,000 cars per day.
Today alone, we've had over 50 hits in the first 3 hours.
Cars wanted in abductions, hit and runs, robberies. In the first 2 weeks, nearly 300 cars impounded, 1,000 summonses written.
We believe it's definitely going to serve as a deterrent to criminals to avoid the confines of the village of Freeport.
That's kind of an invasion of privacy.
I think it's excellent. The more the merrier.
Anything to help make us safer?
I think it's invading privacy.
The New York Civil Liberties Union worries it casts a wide net over the vast majority of people engaging in personal legal activity, calling this, in such a prominent place, a large-scale intrusion. But village officials say law-abiding citizens have nothing to worry about.
This is here to protect the residents. It's here to prevent crime in the future.
In just 3 weeks, nearly 5 million license plates read, the vast majority deleted. But when there is an alert, law enforcement calling it a game changer in crime fighting and even tracking the movement of possible terrorists. In Freeport, Long Island, Carolyn Gussoff, TV 1055.
And still ahead, the backlash and political debate continuing to intensify over whether or not refugees should be allowed into the U.S. in the aftermath of the Paris and Mali attacks. Welcome back. In the aftermath of the Mali attacks, the Paris attacks, and reports that one of the terrorists snuck into Europe with refugees from Syria, it has become an increasingly tense debate about whether the U.S. should allow in as many as 10,000 Syrian refugees.
We need to put the safety and security of the American people first.
I find it absolutely hypocritical for anyone to say, let us shut our borders.
Remember, ISIS, in their own words, said we want to exploit the refugee process to infiltrate the West.
They're victims of this terrorism. Apparently, they're scared of widows and orphans coming into the United States of America as part of our tradition of compassion.
There you see the mix of reactions. Polls showing a majority of Americans oppose this, particularly among Republicans, although there are also some Democrats expressing reservations. Congress acting to limit their access, and numerous governors saying they don't want the refugees here. But what about the reaction from Muslim Americans and Muslims living on Long Island? Well, helping us to address that is Dr. Sheikh Ibrahim Nejm. He is a visiting scholar and imam and an advisor to the Islamic Center of Westbury. Welcome to the show, Imam. Let me begin by asking you, what do you make of the passionate, intense reaction to allowing Syrian refugees into America?
America has known for the fact that it is largely an immigrant nation, and people throughout the history have come to the United States of America fleeing persecution. I believe that the right approach to this debate is knowledge. We know that radicals, ISIS in Syria, for example, constitutes a fringe minority, about 20,000 radicals. The rest of the Syrian people, about 22 million, are the victims of both ISIS and also Assad regime.
Well, you see, that is a small percentage out of the large population, but when people hear 20,000, they go, well, it only took a handful of people to terrorize France.
Yes, of course, but of course with the passport in France, this is not a confirmed information. Let us wait for the proper investigation.
About whether they snuck in with it.
Exactly.
There are reports to that effect.
Because they, as the president says, they are the victims of ISIS, so they are fleeing from persecution.
Before I ask you further about this, how many Muslims live on Long Island and in the tri-state area? Do you know?
In the tri-state area, we have about 400,000.
So that's not an insignificant, that's a very large population.
Yes.
Now the concerns, though, the fears even that are being aired by many is that in light of the Paris attacks, you know, it would only take one terrorist sneaking in with the refugees to do tremendous harm in, say, Times Square or at a subway or at a concert here. It could happen here.
I totally agree with you, but shutting off the borders and preventing people from coming in is not the solution, because ideology, as we say, has wings. So we have to focus our attention in discrediting, disowning this ideology of hate, this ideology of terrorism, by presenting an alternative ideology.
You know, why has that seemed to fail, though? Because we've heard since 9/11 that the loyal Muslim Americans have said that we have to confront this ideology, and yet we still see people leaving their homeland to go fight there or mounting attacks where they live.
No, I beg to differ, because largely the Muslim community in America are law-abiding, and they are doing their best. They are actually in the front line for this ideological battle.
You have some calling for even more extreme measures. A Republican candidate, Donald Trump, saying he says mosques where extremist views are aired should be shut down, and that the mosques need to be monitored.
No, I don't agree with this, because shutting off mosques is not the solution. You will not be safe if you shut the mosques. I think it is better to work with Muslims. Muslims are ready to protect this nation. We are loyal to this nation, and we have together to fight the ideology of hate.
What are you hearing from fellow Muslims? Are they afraid that there's going to be a huge backlash now?
No, I don't think so. Working with the clergy, with interfaith, with the media, we are pretty much sure that we can work together to prevent this backlash.
You know, when we see terrorists waving flags and speaking in the name of Allah, you know, the question that many people have, though, is how have they seemed to hijack the Islamic faith?
This is a fringe minority, but the overwhelming majority of Muslims are voicing, they're standing together, they are discrediting and disowning this fringe minority. We have to work together to end this menace. And I think that Muslim Americans have done great job in the past, and they are willing to do this together with mainstream Americans.
You know, President Obama has defended allowing Syrian refugees into the U.S., but he's also said that the Muslim nations need to do more to step up and confront this threat that's primarily in their own lands.
Actually, we are seconding this, and we're going to have a press conference around 1:30 after the Friday sermon. We're going to participate in marches and rallies against terrorism. We're going to put a Facebook fan page against this. So we're ready to do this.
Do you think that these nations need to step up with more troops, as some people have said? Why risk American lives for a problem that began in the Middle East?
I think it is, we have to take more of preventive measures. Religious literacy is the solution.
Yeah, because, you know, there are even calls now for our own troops to be sent in. This whole debate now about whether a bombing campaign, you know, and critics of the war have also said, you know, the problem with our strategy was that if you break it, you own it. That was Colin Powell who said that in the past under the previous administration.
We've learned from past experiences that waging a war is not the solution. Rather, it is education. Rather, it is taking preventive measures, disowning and discrediting the ideology of hate.
Well, we want to thank you very much for coming in and talking with us today. I know this is a difficult time for Muslims, but a difficult time for everyone because people are losing their lives.
We are in one boat, so we have to work together.
All right, thank you, sir. Dr. Sheikh Ibrahim Nejm, he is a imam from the Islamic Center of Long Island, where he's a visiting scholar. We want to thank you for speaking with us this morning.
Thank you.
And when we return, Santa's loading up for the holidays, how some local kids are making sure nobody's left out this Christmas. And finally for you today, Santa Claus made an early stop on Long Island this week. He came to collect some toys that were donated by some very generous kids for others in need. Santa's familiar greeting filled the Roosevelt Field Mall in Garden City as he entered to cheers from some very excited youngsters from Stewart and Stratford elementary schools, already pumped up to celebrate the big holiday. Santa was equally excited when he saw all the gifts these generous kids brought. They unloaded bag after bag of donated goodies onto Santa's sleigh, proving they're nice, not naughty.
They're showing me how good they are. And because of that, I'm going to have Mrs. Claus work a little harder to make a little more presents.
These grade schoolers have been collecting the gifts for the last month for families struggling to put gifts under the tree.
I feel kind of bad for them, so I like giving to them because it makes me feel good too.
Their teachers say these youngsters often chose toys to give away that they themselves wanted.
I think we have to stop and reflect and say, well, you know what, I have so much, let me give a little something to someone who maybe is a little less fortunate than me.
The U.S. Marines helped organize this Toys for Tots drive to give Santa a helping hand in delivering the Christmas booty to charitable organizations.
We'll give the toys to Catholic charities. We'll give the toys to the Salvation Army.
And Santa says these generous kids are now his newest elves and that it's definitely going to help him complete his rounds this year. That's our show. We'd like to thank our guests here today on Exit 1055 Long Island, Staff Sergeant Tim Terrain and Dr. Sheikh Ibrahim Nejm. I'm Richard Rose. Thank you for being there. Please like us on my public Facebook page shown below on your screen. And we hope to see you back here same time next Sunday morning. Now here's a look at your community calendar. Have a great week.